What is up? 80s Revolution back here with another video. We are concluding the Hasbro WWF review tonight. We will be talking about Series 10 and Series 11. Why am I including both in one video? Well, because I only have two figures from the green card series, Series 11. Sorry, I do not have a full collection to show you guys. So we'll talk about Series 10, we'll talk about Series 11, we'll wrap that up, and that will conclude the Hasbro review. But it will not conclude the Hasbros. The next video I'll do will be a top 10 list. So basically my top 10 favorite Hasbro figures, WWF Hasbro figures, and my bottom 10, my least favorite WWF Hasbro figures. And I'll also show off the ring as well. So that'll be the next video, and then we'll do an LJN bonus video where we review two figures that I left off during my initial review. We'll also talk about the LJN bendy figures, the LJN thumb wrestlers, the bendy ring and cage, and then a couple of some extras that I have that some people have asked to see. So we'll be doing that next as well. Before I get into that, I wanted to do some usual announcements and things like that. I told you before that I had been contacted by somebody about the channel and about some interesting opportunities regarding the channel. I have no new information there. Basically, I've given you no information about it at all, so you're kind of in the dark about it, but I just want to wait until it either happens or completely falls through. Either way, I will tell you what that is. I have taken some steps towards it, whatever it is, and I'll let you know where we're at. But I can tell you that I heard from by a pretty awesome bunch of people today. I got an interesting message from a group that is local here in Rochester. So upstate New York, Rochester, New York. This is a group of people who have really been wanting to sort of open up a retro 80s store, it sounds like. I mean, obviously there are toy stores that sell retro toys, but these guys have such a cool idea that I mean, you know, I would love to be a part of this. In fact, it's something that I've actually kind of fantasized about doing myself. They want to have, you know, they basically want to have a store slash hangout spot that's 80s themed. So, you know, they could rent, you know, they're going to rent videos, they're going to rent DVDs or Blu-rays that are 80s themed movies. They're going to have, you know, like retro video game night. They're going to have get-togethers, maybe board games, you know, whatever. And of course, they're going to have memorabilia to sell, things like that. So this is kind of an idea that these guys have, and they reached out to me to see if I could help. Of course, I would love to be interested in love to be involved in something like that. So check them out if you get a chance. Again, I don't know how many of my viewers are in, you know, Rochester or Buffalo or Syracuse or even, you know, Pennsylvania, you know, Canada, Toronto, things like that. But if you are, check out these guys. So their YouTube page, they have two. One is called Midnight Kids Productions. So Midnight Kids Productions. And their other channel is Gourmet Scum Radio. Gourmet Scum Radio. One of the ideas that they had, and I guess that they've been doing for a while, sounds amazing to me. Basically, they gather up all their nerdy friends on a Saturday night, and they sit around for 12 hours, and they have a 12-hour TV marathon where they watch nothing but 80s TV, cartoons, and commercials, all edited together. And they sit around in their pajamas and eat 80s food and fun candies and cereal. Freaking amazing idea. I love it. So thanks to you guys for reaching out to me. Again, I would love to be involved in any way possible. Let me know. what you need me to do. But thanks anyway for your interest in my channel and contacting me. What else? So we're wrapping up the Hasbros. We're going to do the LJNs like I talked about, and then we're going to just keep going. You know, we're just going to keep reviewing, you know, my stuff and going over my stuff. We're going to do the toy shows. We're going to do flea markets. We're going to just do pickups. I grabbed an interesting pickup the other day from a thrift store that I haven't showed you yet, and I'm going to be flipping it on eBay. I'll show you what that is a little later. And yes, of course, we're going to do the WWF years in review, starting with 1984. That is coming, I promise. If you are hanging in there and waiting for it, keep waiting. It is coming, guaranteed. It'll be worth the wait. So let's get right into the Hasbros. We've got Series 10, 1994, followed by Series 11, the green cards, 1994. And the green cards is the final Hasbro figures. Then we were pretty much without wrestling figures for a couple of years. And then I believe I want to say 1997, maybe 1996, Jakks Pacific took over with the bone-crunching figures. And then, of course, the rest is history with Jakks and Mattel. But we're not talking about that, are we? Because we're retro, and we're Hasbro, and we're talking about the Series 10, which were released on blue card, but dark blue card. Not royal blue like the originals, dark blue. All right. And first tag team that I want to review, I have talked about from a previous series because they were released on a previous card. We're talking about Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers. This is a different color scheme for the Bushwhackers, different color pants, and I believe they had different colored hats as well. I do not have their hats, as you can see, but this is Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers, and we reviewed them a little earlier. This is their Series 10 release, and what I think is much better camo than their initial figures, which was more of the tan and white camo. Bushwhackers, Luke and Butch. Easy, simple review, right? We've already talked about them. A figure that is probably going to make my top or my bottom 10 Hasbro figures is the first Marty Jannetty, released in the Rockers tag team. Probably one that might just be on the outside of my top 10 favorite figures list would be the second release of Marty Jannetty, who returned to the WWF in the early 90s as a singles competitor, and then and obviously immediately got into a feud with Shawn Michaels. And in fact, Marty Jannetty had a very brief run as the Intercontinental Champion, defeating Shawn Michaels and then dropping the belt back to him. And this whole feud kind of happened in the early stages of Monday Night Raw. So we've got the second Marty Jannetty and a much better figure than his first. So this is the second Marty Jannetty figure, single Marty Jannetty. And why is this just on the outside of my favorite figures? Because of the pose. Again, remember, I came from LJN days where, you know, the more solid the pose, the better for play. And this is, to me, or to little kid me, the perfect play pose. No silly, gimmicky action moves. You know, no legs fused together. His fists are both clenched. To me, this is pretty close to a perfect figure. I'd have probably been happy if every single Hasbro figure was released just like this. But anyway, here's the Marty Jannetty Series 10 figure. Colorful pants, good face sculpt. I'm pretty sure that's the same as the original rocker Marty Jannetty. His legs are separated, which is great. I think this is the same pose that they used for Rick Martel, the model Rick Martel, and some figures that we're going to see coming up in a minute. But here is Marty Jannetty's second Hasbro figure. A huge improvement from one of the worst Hasbro figures. His first one. Of course, without Marty, you know, you can't talk about Marty Jannetty without talking about the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. I think I did that bad impersonation the first time I talked about him. So Shawn Michaels has had that horrible Rockers figure. He also had a much improved figure with red and white tights. And now we have his Series 10 release, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, in one of my favorite poses. I can almost guarantee you that this figure is going to be in my top 10 Hasbro figures list. I love this figure. For some reason, the black and silver is more expensive than the exact same figure, white and red, just different paint, same pose, same head sculpt, same figure. This one's about $15, $20, $25 more than the white and red one. To me, kind of a perfect figure. Again, perfect play pose. Legs are, you know, just perfect. Great figure. Love this figure. Definitely in my top 10. Silver or black Shawn Michaels. We talked about Razor Ramon earlier on. In a previous series, he got a release with red vest and black trunks. This is his second release. This is affectionately known as Purple Razor. This is his 1994 Series 10 dark blue card release. And I'm not sure if I like the first one with the black vest and red trunks. I'm not sure if I like that one more than I like this one. I don't know. But I love this figure. I love the purple. I love the play pose. Here's a little, you know, a little tip. This most likely will be in my top 10 favorite figures list. You know, Razor Ramon really, Razor Ramon obviously was Scott Hall's biggest, and you know, this was his mainstream character. I mean, Scott Hall kind of floated around for a little while, wrestling in smaller organizations, AWA, Florida, NWA, you know, but, you know, really nobody. In fact, you'll remember him prior to coming to the WWF in the NWA/WCW. You'll remember him as this character named the Diamond Stud. Not too far off from the Razor Ramon character, but certainly a, you know, kind of a no-name mid-carder at best. When he came to the WWF and when he became Razor Ramon, this made Scott Hall a millionaire. So, and obviously the NWO wouldn't have happened without Razor Ramon. So here is the 1994 Series 10 Razor Ramon. Again, affectionately known as Purple Razor Ramon. Great, great figure. Believe it or not, probably a figure that's going to make my top 10 list. I really don't know what to think. You know, in the 90s, you know, the early 90s, you know, wrestling skill was, you know, important, but probably wasn't tops on the list of ways you could become a professional wrestler. And Jorge Gonzales was just this really unusually tall guy from Argentina. And if you're an unusually tall and hulking and massive dude, there's a pretty good chance you can become a professional wrestler if you'd like. And Jorge Gonzales apparently had some basketball talent, and he played, I don't know if it's professional basketball in Argentina, but he did, before getting into the wrestling business. And of course, getting into the wrestling business, he was kind of one of the more odd characters in WCW. You'll remember him as El Gigante, or El Gigante, the Giant, obviously. really, really bad. I mean, what can an almost 8 feet tall wrestler really do except, you know, power moves and throw people around? So El Gigante faded from the WCW and showed up in the WWF. Of course he did, as Giant Gonzales. And who can forget the fact that Giant Gonzales had a costume that was basically made of fur? He had probably one of the worst outfits I've ever seen on a wrestler. The figure has him nude with, you know, patches of fur. That was not the case. Giant Gonzales had a horrible skin tone tight outfit that he wore, almost like tights or pantyhose, basically spandex, that had, you know, this if you remember, like, Slim Goodbody. You remember Slim Goodbody from, like, the really early 80s, where he wore that suit that was made up of, like, all these body parts, so it kind of... Go back and look at what Giant Gonzales wore to the ring. This is his figure. Obviously a forgettable person in wrestling history. But of course, being 8 feet tall, you're going to match him against, you know, guys like The Undertaker. And you're going to put him in a casket match with guys like The Undertaker. And it's going to be a horrible, horrible idea. But why is this one of my top 10 favorite figures? One reason only: playability. I love this figure. It's basic. It's playable. No strange gimmicks, no horrible twisty moves. Legs are spread apart like they should be. And he's taller than all the other figures. So, you know, they got the scale right. Great figure. Horrible, horrible, horrible character. Do I want to speak ill of the dead? No. Giant Gonzales is no longer with us. Jorge Gonzales, of course, passed away earlier than he should have because of his, you know, massive structure. Okay. I saved these guys for the last of Series 10 because they have, you know, just an amazing history in wrestling. I mean, can you think of any other family that has more stars in wrestling than the Samoans? And I don't mean Samoa Joe or guys like that. I mean the actual Afa and Sika, the Samoans. Those two guys have more offspring and more relatives in wrestling than anybody or any other family that I've ever heard of. I think the only thing that possibly comes close would be the Von Erichs, and they're not even close. The Samoans, Afa and Sika, have, you know, just brought so many family members to wrestling and brought them to really high, you know, successful levels. So we've got the head shrinkers. Great idea for the figures. I mean, of course the head shrinkers had to be made. And from the top up, I love these figures. Or from the waist up, I should say. I love these figures. But unfortunately, they've got those horrible, stuck-together leg poses. So we're talking about Fatu and Samu, the head shrinkers. Now, here's some history. Fatu, if you take a close look at the face, does he look like anybody to you? It's kind of hard. I mean, I'm telling you to look at an action figure and tell me who he looks like. But Fatu is actually Rikishi. At one point, Rikishi weighed about 285 pounds. And this is, you know, a good representation of that. Rikishi was Fatu of the head shrinkers. He then went on to, I believe he was the Sultan. Well, I know he was the Sultan. I'm wondering if this was after Fatu. But in you know, 95, 96, there was this character under a red mask managed by none other than the Iron Sheik. No, wait, the Sultan. Bob Backlund? Did Bob Backlund manage the Sultan? Yes. Bob Backlund managed the Sultan. No idea why. But anyway, the Sultan was Fatu, or Rikishi, under a mask. Then the mask came off, and he was, I think his name was Fatu, and he was kind of like this sort of inner city gang guy turned good, and he was trying to like do good within, you know, the inner city or whatever. That was his character at the time. And then he gained a whole bunch of weight, and his ass got huge, and he became Rikishi. And that is obviously his most monetarily successful character. But this is his first wrestling figure as Head Shrinker Fatu. Now, Head Shrinker Samu has been around a lot longer than you think. And when we start reviewing the 1984 WWF television shows in review, we're going to be talking a lot about Samu. Samu started wrestling at 18, 19 years old. And he was brought into the WWF in 1983 as Samu. The Samoans, Afa and Sika, who were the tag team champions around that time, brought in a third Samoan. And that was Afa's son, Samu. And he was legitimate son, by the way. He was brought in at 19, and in fact, in 1983, on a few WWF Championship Wrestling shows, he was really jobbed out. I mean, he was a jobber in a few episodes, a few matches. Then he became part of, you know, the Samoan six-man tag and kind of won a few more matches and became, you know, a little bit more of a push. But Samu's been around a very, very long time. And so this is Afa's son, Samu, and Sika's nephew, Samu. So he was in the Head Shrinkers, and then in WCW. What the heck was the name of that tag team in WCW? Can't remember. Somebody let me know. It's up there. But there was a Samoan tag team in WCW as well, and Samu was one of them. And they feuded with the Road Warriors. And I can't remember the name. And I hate this gimmick. Anyway, Samu and Fatu, the Head Shrinkers. And I don't really stay up with current stuff. I think the current Usos, Jimmy and Jay Uso, who are on SmackDown, I think, are Rikishi's sons. That I know for sure. I don't know how Samu and Roman Reigns are related. They might be cousins. I think Roman Reigns is Sika's son. This is Afa's son. So they're either cousins or brothers. Not sure. Don't know. But anyway, they're all related. The Rock, all those guys. Samoans. So we got Head Shrinkers. Sadly, the Hasbro license came to an end in late 1994, and the final set of figures released was the green cards. They are the priciest. Loose figures go for usually no less than $50 or $60. Carded, the figures go for no less than $95 or $100. And so first I will talk about the ones that I do not have. I do not have the black and white tights Yokozuna. I showed you the red and black tights Yokozuna. It's the same exact figure, just white and black. I do not have Kona Crush, Bad Guy Crush. I think I do. I don't think I pulled him for this. Sorry, I don't see him. I might have Bad Guy Crush. I'm not sure. I don't have the 1-2-3 Kid, who has a pose that was probably only meant for the 1-2-3 Kid, but also for Ric Flair, which makes no sense. I don't have Atom Bomb, and I do not have Billy Gunn, who, of course, went on to do lots and lots of other stuff. I do have Bart Gunn. So this is Bart Gunn, who had a little bit less of a successful career than Billy Gunn. Bart Gunn is notoriously known as the person who was knocked out by Butterbean at WrestleMania. Part of that horrible kayfabe-destroying Brawl for All. Or Brawl for It All, or whatever. But this is Bart Gunn, part of the Smoking Guns tag team. Great figure. Absolutely great figure. Love this figure. The other green card that I have, I almost said black card. The only green card that I have is Ludwig Borga. An interesting character came into the WWF 1994 from Finland. This guy's name is Tony Helm. He is an actual legitimate, MMA sort of tough guy fighter. Tony Helm came in as this, of course, this foreign Finnish brute, tough guy, bad guy who had a very forgettable run in the WWF. Unfortunately, had some serious mental health and possibly some drug issues, and committed suicide a few years ago, several years ago. But Ludwig Borga is the only other green card that I have. If you guys have some green card figures that you'd like to trade away or sell away, let me know. I'm, of course, wanting to complete the Hasbro collection. But that's that, guys. That's the Hasbro review. We're going to come back next video with my top 10 and bottom 10 figures, Hasbro WWF figures. And we'll show you off the ring, and then we'll move on. So, hope you've enjoyed it. We've done 11 series, or 10 and a half, basically. And again, as always, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you soon. Take care, guys.